Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. My guest is another one of Broadway's nicest and beloved leading men. You know him from such musicals as Hair, Les Mis, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Waitress, and 110 in the Shade. Well, now he has taken on the iconic role of Neil Diamond in the new Broadway-Bound musical, A Beautiful Noise. Please say hello to my friend, Will Swenson.
Hey, Richie.
First of all, how are you and where are you?
I'm great. I'm in a hotel room in Boston, but I'm super great. We opened the show this weekend, and it went great. The show's a ball to do. I'm getting to play a rock star every night, so this is stuff they don't necessarily have to pay me for. Don't tell my producers, but it sounds cheesy, but it's a show I would totally just do for fun.
Okay, so you just had your opening night. How magical was opening night for you?
I mean, always amazing. My entire family came up. I had, I think, 20 family members at opening night, and people have been coming to previews and posts. So it's lovely to feel this supported. Always when it's about me, right? If I'm the center of attention, it's great. But I mean, the show is just the ball. And Boston is fantastic, and the Colonial Theater is just like the best theater in all of musical theaterdom, arguably the birthplace of musical theater. So it's terrific. I'm having the best time.
What do you remember about opening night? Do you have like a pre-show ritual that you do before you go on stage as Neil?
I sure do. I mean, that ritual is not any different on opening night as it is from any other night, but I mean, as a cast, I always love to make sure we get together and like take in the moment and just like, understand how blessed we are and how lucky we are to do what we do, particularly nowadays, after the pandemic in the last 2 years of at times wondering if we would ever even get to come back ever and do our art form, which requires hundreds of people to be in the same room together, and to have that taken away from you for years, and wondering if we were ever going to get to do this thing which fulfills us, and then come back and do this show. And this show, in particular, is about someone wondering that very same question, if they can ever perform again, and what we are without our art. So it feels kind of doubly fulfilling and resonant to do a show that talks about those questions as our first big show back after the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I saw an interview of you sitting in that beautiful lobby area, the lobby bar, that lounge there with the incredible, famous marble table. See, I was up to see Robin Herder and them in Moulin Rouge, so I spent a lot of time in that room. So that magical marble table, how cool is that? Have you touched it?
Oh, sure. Of course. We all do. We touch it for good luck. And, not to mention that Rodgers and Hammerstein hammered out bits of Carousel in that room. And, Porgy and Bess premiered at that theater. And oh, what a beautiful morning was first sung across those floorboards. So, I mean, the whole theater is just rich. There's a plaque in the back of the theater that says Neil Simon stood here, because he famously wouldn't go see his shows on Broadway, but when they were working up his shows, which he mostly did at the Colonial, he would stand in the back of the house right there. It's incredible.
Because there's chips on that marble table too. You know where the chips came from?
From Fosse, right?
During dancing, he would tap dance on that table. So I'm like, when I was up there, I was like, not only am I touching the DNA of like Rodgers and Hammerstein and Porgy and Bess and Neil Simon, but also you touch those little jagged pieces and you realize, oh my God, Bob Fosse created some of his numbers for dancing on that table.
Danced on this table.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
It's such a magical theater. Like I said, just going upstairs and seeing all the posters and everything else, and just the history, like you said, of that backstage area. I mean, your dressing room, there must be so many incredible people who have used your dressing room.
I know it. I thought of the same thing. There's an On the Town poster in my room, and that was premiered at the Colonial as well. Just incredible.
Well, you have played some amazing roles on stage throughout your illustrious career. What has made playing Neil Diamond so special for you?
A number of things. First, it just feels like one of those meant to be things. Neil Diamond is my dad's favorite singer of all time, and I'm not making this up, but like, I grew up with Neil Diamond on repeat in my home. I knew every single song before we ever started rehearsals. There was a poster of Neil Diamond in my garage growing up that somehow my dad had gotten autographed. knew them all. And he's just one of the most beloved singers in America, period, let alone in my house, was the number one. So to do this feels very much like I'm honoring kind of my history. The whole thing has felt very nostalgic, and my dad has lost his mind. He's just in seventh heaven. I think he took a stack of playbills about this thick home from opening night. And then just to get to play rock star every night. I get to put on amazing outfits and have every light in the theater pointed at me and play the guitar and do all the things that I just love to do when nobody's watching. So it's a thrill.
Do you remember the first time you saw yourself made up, like done up with wig and costume and your guitar in the mirror as Neil Diamond? Like, what went through your mind?
Yeah, it's a little trippy. I was like, oh, there he is. Yeah, I mean, all the elements come together as a performer, and you put on the shoes and you feel a little more like them. You put on the costumes a little more, and then you throw that wig on, and then maybe you fill in your eyebrows a little or something to kind of just get a little closer to the appearance of the performer. And with Neil, when I finally had all those things put together, I was like, oh my gosh, there he is.
Yeah. What was it like the first time meeting him in person?
Super nerve-wracking. He came to one of our first readings, and this was pre-pandemic when we had started working on the show. And to kind of get his blessing and make sure that he approved of what we were doing and the book and the way the story was being told, he came to one of our first readings, which was just, in a rehearsal studio. And there was, the cast and Neil and Katie, his wife, and a few of their team and our creative team. And, so there were not more than 30 people in the room. And Neil sat about 5 feet in front of me, and we proceeded to sing 25 Neil Diamond songs. And I'm singing Neil Diamond songs as Neil Diamond, 5 feet away from Neil Diamond. Just, I don't remember much of it because I don't think I'll ever be that nervous again in my entire life, which is a blessing and a curse because I have no idea how that went. Apparently it went fine and good enough to continue working on the show and keep me in it. But as a blessing, I never have been that nervous. Neil's continued to be a part of the process. He came to the rehearsal room this go round and had ideas and was collaborative and suggestions and helpful things. And while it's always crazy bizarre to tell his story with him in the room, super, super surreal for us. It's got to be probably more surreal for him to watch his life unfold in front of him. But luckily, he's such a lovely guy and just a real sweetheart and a real artist and interested and connected to it. And I mean, the first time as a staged musical, we sang it. He was singing along to some of the songs. I mean, when we started Sweet Caroline, he sang along with us and had his hands in the air, and we were just like, what is happening? This is crazy. It sounds a little cheesy, but it's literally been a dream come true.
No, because I've asked Adrienne Warren what it was like having Tina Turner in the room. And I asked the three ladies who played Cher, I'm like, what was it like? Those in that rehearsal room when you're like, now we're going to present this show to these people. And I'm like, how you focus yourself without your mind exploding when you're doing Neil Diamond right in front of Neil Diamond.
Yeah. Well, the first time we did it where we were staged, I was so nervous. And the very first thing I do is I appear upstage and I walk down, and I'm supposed to walk about 5 paces and stop. And then the ensemble kind of swirls around me dancing. And I was so nervous. And I was like, you got this, Will. Just smile, play your song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I realized I had just kept walking and had completely missed my mark. And 10 ensemble members then swirling around. I was in the wrong place, knocked into me. So right off the top, I screwed up, and it was not a lovely, beautiful moment, but that was probably the biggest guffaw of that run. But yeah, totally a tricky headspace to navigate.
Everybody has them. Like I said, it doesn't matter what show you do, but when you're playing an icon, and the icon is in the room with you, it's something. Everybody said something went wrong. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And you start off that way. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I got to do another 2 hours of this." But it's like, right. I'll get this somehow.
Right.
What's it been like getting to know him? I mean, like I said, I was growing up on him too. And, Rob Diamond, the owner of, Broadway-World, my boss, has been obsessed with Neil Diamond. He's taking me to Neil Diamond concerts. And they are the coolest concerts to go to.
Yeah.
What's it been like getting to know him during this process?
It's been incredible. I mean, you're never like at ease because you're talking to one of the greatest rock and roll icons in history, and in this context where I'm the guy representing him, I just want nothing more than to please him and have his blessing. And um, but thank goodness he's interested and invested and part of the process, has been a caretaker. He's like asked me how are you taking care of your voice? How's the sound? Are you making sure the mix is good? How are your guitars? And you know, so it's been incredible. And then we've gotten to do a couple of press things. We went to Fenway Park and we sang "Sweet Caroline" at a Red Sox game, and that was incredible. He's so beloved in Boston because of his connection with Sweet Caroline and the Red Sox. People just lost their minds when they saw him, and they were like, "Who's this joker standing next to him?" But
That had to have been a surreal moment for you, because I watched that clip of all of you at Fenway. It's like the cast is up there with Neil Diamond and you two are singing at each other. And I thought to myself, this has to be one of the greatest pinch me moments in Will Swenson's career.
absolutely. I'm a huge baseball fan too. It was just super out of body, just crazy. And thank goodness everyone photographed that evening well, because I have these amazing photos for the rest of my life, which will like go up on my wall in my house of me and Neil Diamond singing "Sweet Caroline." I'm getting emotional now just talking about it. It's just been surreal and surpasses any kind of bucket list dream I could have dreamed up.
Okay, because I know there's another clip of him arriving for one, and maybe it was the first preview. I'm not sure which performance it was, when the house went ballistic at the Colonial.
Yeah. Yeah, that was our first preview, and Neil walked in right at curtain, not expecting to, be noticed or anything, but they clocked him quick, and they legitimately clapped for 20 minutes. They just wouldn't stop. They just screamed and screamed, and people ran down and took photos, and he just politely waved, and it was just incredible. We just stood backstage ready to go on, just couldn't believe that they kept cheering. They just kept cheering. They couldn't believe it. And then when we went out, there were people with tears streaming down their faces at the very beginning of the show, because they were just so invested, and they love him so much. And that's a regular thing. That's not just an opening night thing. I've seen regularly just people just sit out there and just cry. People have had their albums, their Neil album, they've brought them to the show with them to just share the experience with their albums, and they'll sit there with their albums and just cry. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Because when I had seen him at the Garden, whatever, it was the most civilized audience. People would get up and like wave, and you could sit and you could watch an entire rock concert, not having to stand through the whole show. And I thought to myself, there were thousands of people there just having the time of their life. And it was one of these connections between artist and audience. And it's still one of the best nights I've ever spent at a rock concert ever, was seeing Neil Diamond live at Madison Square Garden.
His concerts were incredible. I got the chance to see him a couple of times, and just incredible.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with him once where they talked about his concerts and how charismatic and connected he was to the audience. And he said something that floored me. He just said, I just, I give it everything that I have every single time, because I'm not going to take that chance that I don't connect with that audience. I'm not going to take that chance that they don't have the best time.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I felt like he was in my living room. And seriously, Madison Square Garden is huge. We had great seats, but still everybody felt like he was singing to them. And It was a 3-hour concert, and it went by in like an hour. It seemed it was only an hour. It was 3 hours later. And you just walked out, 12 inches off the ground after you walked out.
Right.
That's great.
Right. Yeah. He's got that knack of understanding that it's all about connection and truth. And he rarely sings the song the same way twice. Doing my research on YouTube, I was just like, he did this different every time, because he felt it different every time. Just the opposite of a robot performer.
Yeah. No, because you look at his career, it's over 50 years, dozens of albums, 21 of which went platinum, 38 top 40 singles, selling over 130, songs and albums or whatever. It's astounding. What is it like singing his songs and singing his music?
It's fantastic, because I love them all. I know them all. In fact, I've done them before. I've in like cabaret or whatever, or I've sung "You Don't Bring Me Flowers." I've sung "Play Me," and I've sung "Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show" before this project was ever even a thought in anybody's head. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's great. So, what I want to ask you next is let's talk about the creative team. I mean, you have your director, Michael Mayer, you have your choreographer, Stephen Hoggett, and of course, your book writer, Anthony McCartan. What a dream team you have. What's it been like working with them on this project?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I think, I don't know what the origins of it was, but obviously you start with a book, and Anthony's a screenwriter. Like, he wrote the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, he's writing the new Whitney Houston, he's really good at these biographies. But because he's a screenwriter, he had no preconceived ideas about musical theater structure. And so he just dreamed up this play with no idea about, well, we can't do that because this transition can never work on stage. You know, he just wrote it, not thinking about anything. And I think a lot of directors would take a look at it and just go, oh, well, we can't do that. We have to change that. That can't work. But Michael Mayer, being the genius that he is, just has this massive artistic quiver from which to draw his arrows, and just figured out how to make it work with these conventions. The show's told in a very unconventional way. It's like, it's not a straightforward structure. It's not really linear in time. It's a memory play in all ways. It's a memory play. So it's just super unique. So it started from this book that's unlike anything you've seen on Broadway. It's the least jukebox musical-y songbook show of any you'll ever see. And then, so Michael Mayer's on board, just, working wonders with this interesting way of storytelling. And then that's like the perfect template for somebody like Stephen Hoggett to get in and work his magic. Cause like, he's just a truth-seeking missile. I feel like what he does is he just goes, where's the truth? Does that motion tell the truth? If it doesn't, I'm getting rid of it. It doesn't matter if it's dance. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, every single motion, does it tell the truth and does it tell our story? Is the way he works. So I think between the three of them, it's just a match made in heaven. I was in heaven doing it. I'm not just like doing press and saying that they're brilliant the way that one does. I legitimately would mop Stephen Hoggett's floors, and I am thrilled to have finally gotten to work with Michael Mayer. And Anthony's script is incredible. I feel like I just got dropped in a bucket of lucky stew.
I love that. And then there's a remarkable cast. I mean, talk about the cast you're working with.
Incredible again, just all, Broadway A-list folks. Just, pick your favorite performers that fit these roles, and that's who we got. Everybody's just terrific, just so terrific.
Because there's two Neil Diamonds. I mean, just explain who plays the older Neil Diamond.
Mark Jacoby plays the modern day 81-year-old Neil Diamond, and I don't think it's giving too much away to say that it's a memory play, and he's looking back on his life, and as he looks back on his life, I'm the one that plays the younger version of Neil.
I think this is so brilliant, the way Anthony has come up with this, to have taken Neil Diamond's story. No story has ever been told this way in a musical. And I think this was so brilliant with your creative team, the way this is all done.
It's kind of amazing. I mean, often we're both on stage in the same scene at the same time, and he's feeling, the regrets of bad decisions and wishing he could change it, and almost trying to alter my physicality to try to, tear me away from that bad decision, and signing bad record deals. And it's like a Brian Friel play almost. It's just, there's so much. And I almost see my older self longing to get to that success. And it's just, it's beautiful. I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And again, let's talk about the audience again. I mean, I know so many people who have gone up there to see this show already, and they're having the time of their life. I mean, it must be so great for you. Like you said, none of us knew during the pandemic when theater in general or any kind of live performing was ever going to come back anywhere in the world, because this is a worldwide pandemic. And now you're bringing so much joy to so many people. I mean, just talk about, I don't know if you can meet the audience yet, but you must see them at the end of the show outside, screaming and yelling as you come out of the stage door. Like, what's that connection been like for you again that you haven't had in 2.5 years?
Well, it's thrilling. I mean, I feel like, sometimes you don't know how much you value something until it's gone. Much like, like losing a close family member or a friend, it's just this thing that's taken from you unexpectedly. And I feel like theater was that for us. We had to take a part of our heart and put it on a shelf and just wonder if we could ever, get that back. So to have that back, I get emotional when I talk about this every
Yeah.
time. To get that back is so fulfilling, just to have missed it and to have not been able to have that part of us that fulfills us and makes us who we are has been devastating. And we're slowly getting back to the way we were before. Hopefully we can get all the way back, you know. But I think it's been thrilling for the audiences and thrilling for us. And thank goodness that we're on that road back. But it's been such a joy.
And you're going to come back to New York at the Broadhurst Theater. I mean, like, what's going through your mind coming back to Broadway?
Well, thrilled, you know, because this project started before the pandemic, and then, you know, the pandemic shut us all down. You know, we weren't sure if the show would continue or how Neil's health would be, and you know, knock on everything, everything's gone wonderfully, and everybody's in great shape and enjoying and succeeding with this show, and people are losing their minds over it. It's incredible to just. I normally I hate curtain calls for some reason. I'm just a little one of those actors that's a little uncomfortable with the attention. But for some reason with this one, I can sense how much joy it's bringing the audience, and maybe because of the pandemic and because it's so fulfilling in that sense, I'm just loving the communal feel in the house every night. It's like, yes, we can do this again. It's just there's something really beautiful about it. So I'm just grateful. I'm just over the moon grateful.
Like, I'm not going to give anything away about the finale, but the entire audience is on their feet with all of you doing one of the most iconic Neil Diamond songs of all time. And it must be so incredible to get that feeling back and forth between you and the audience every night. It's so great. I can't believe it's me at the center of it. I'm thrilled, and to get to come back to do it on Broadway is crazy. It's crazy. Do your favorites change? I mean, there's so many incredible. I was looking through the Neil Diamond canon. I mean, there are so many. I'm a believer. I was growing up on the Monkees. I had like a Monkees band in our garage. I played the maracas, and the tambourine. And I didn't realize how many incredible people wrote for the Monkees, like Carole King, Neil Diamond. It's crazy. And you look at his body of work. Is there a favorite that you do in the show every night that's like, oh my God, I can't wait to do this number? Or are they all like that for you? I mean, it changes a bit. I think night to night, it kind of changes. It's very often Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show. I'm obsessed with that song. And to do it with our band, like a huge whole band with horns and guitars and crazy percussion and just a huge sound system and lights. It just feels like you couldn't possibly ever get higher on the mountain than that. My final question is, if you could sum up the best part of the experience of working on this so far, what's it been for you, Will? It's just all felt like a privilege, Richie. I mean, I love musicals. I love Neil Diamond, and I love performance. So for me to get to do this within the context and the framework of what I do for a living, it feels very much to me like it was meant to be. I cannot express how grateful I am to have been in the right place at the right time to get to do this thing. I mean, Richie, in high school, if the auditorium was empty, I would go plug in a microphone and I would stand in an empty auditorium and I would sing Neil Diamond songs. I'm not even making this up. So to get paid to do this with all of the accoutrement that comes with it, with an amazing ensemble, an amazing creative team in the heart of musical theater, and to come back to Broadway, it's legit just a dream come true. I just love when it works out, when you get a full circle moment where like the perfect actor with the perfect part and the perfect musical all come together. Like you said, you were brought up on Neil Diamond. It was your father's favorite. It's in your DNA. And all of a sudden it'd be like, oh my God, Will Swenson, you're going to play Neil Diamond on Broadway. And it's incredible. You know, we dream about certain things. And then when they come about for incredible people like you, you're one of the nicest people I have ever known, my friend, one of the most talented. Oh. And it's so great when these things come together for artists. Thank you, Richie. Thank you. You're one of the nicest people I've ever known. Well, you have a show tonight. Thank you for doing this before you have a show. Everybody watching, once again, Will Swenson stars as Neil Diamond in the new musical, A Beautiful Noise, which is playing at the Colonial in Boston until August 7th. And then Broadway previews begin on November 2nd with an opening night on December 4th, where I will be at the Broadhurst Theater. Will, it's been great catching up with you, my friend. It is always fun and always a pleasure, Richie. So I love to the family, and I'll see you in New York, if not sooner, in Boston.
All right. Awesome. Love it.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you at the theater.